In the heart of the Roman Empire there lived a prince who was everything Rome dreamed of being. His name was Germanicus Julius Caesar. He wasn't just a prince by blood. He was a prince in spirit, a man who seemed destined to carry the legacy of Augustus and lead Rome into a golden age. He was the adopted son of the reigning emperor Tiberius, a position that placed him at the very doorstep of absolute power. But more than that, he was the people's choice, the soldier's hero. Where the emperor was seen as distant and severe, Germanicus was compassionate and approachable. Where Tiberius was cautious, Germanicus was bold. The legions he commanded didn't just follow him, they adored him. Stories of his bravery and his willingness to share the hardships of the common soldiers spread throughout the empire. The citizens of Rome celebrated his name, seeing in him a reflection of the Republic's old virtues, a leader who was both a brilliant general and a man of the people. Even Rome's enemies, the fierce tribes of Germania, respected him as a formidable and honorable opponent. His popularity was a force of nature, a wave of affection and hope that swept across the known world. This story, however, begins not with glory, but with a wound, a deep, psychological wound to the heart of the empire. Years earlier, in the dark, dense Teutoburg forest, 3 entire Roman legions, 17,000 men, had been ambushed and annihilated. It was a disaster so profound that Emperor Augustus was said to have wandered his palace for months, crying out, "Quinctilius Verus, give me back my legions." The eagle standards of those legions, the sacred symbols of Roman might, were now trophies in the hands of German chieftains. The defeat was more than a military loss. It was a stain on Rome's honor, a symbol of its vulnerability. It was into this shadow that Germanicus rode, tasked with avenging the fallen and restoring Roman pride. He led his legions across the Rhine, deep into the hostile forests of Germania. These were not campaigns of simple conquest. They were campaigns of vengeance and redemption. He hunted down the tribes responsible for the massacre, facing them on their own treacherous ground. His leadership was masterful. He inspired his men to fight with a ferocity born of grief and a desire for retribution. Year after year, he pushed deeper. He found the site of the Teutoburg disaster, a grim field of bleached bones and rusted armor. There he and his men performed funeral rites for their fallen comrades, a deeply emotional moment that bonded him to the army forever. And then, he achieved what many thought impossible. In a series of brilliant battles, he defeated the German war chief Arminius, the mastermind of the Teutoburg ambush. More importantly, he recovered 2 of the 3 lost legionary standards. The eagles were coming home. When news of his victories reached Rome, the city erupted in celebration. Germanicus had done more than win battles. He had healed a national trauma. He had restored Rome's sense of invincibility. His name was on everyone's lips. Triumphal arches were decreed in his honor. His popularity soared to heights no one had seen since Augustus himself. He was the hero of the age, the savior of Roman honor. But in the corridors of power on the Palatine Hill, this adoration was not a source of celebration. It was a source of anxiety. In Rome, to be more popular than the emperor was a dangerous game. Emperor Tiberius, a man known for his suspicion and political maneuvering, watched his adopted son's star rise with a mixture of public praise and private fear. A general so beloved by his army could, with a single word, march on Rome. Whether Germanicus ever entertained such a thought is doubtful, but in the paranoid world of imperial politics, the possibility was enough. So, at the very peak of his success in Germania, the order came from Rome. Germanicus was to be recalled. Officially, it was to celebrate a magnificent triumph, the highest honor a general could receive. Tiberius showered him with public accolades, celebrating his victories and proclaiming him a hero. But behind the pageantry, the message was clear. His time on the Rhine was over. His connection to his loyal legions was to be severed. The triumph, as grand as it was, felt less like a reward and more like a gilded cage. Germanicus, ever the loyal son and servant of the state, obeyed. He returned to Rome and celebrated his triumph. The crowds cheered, the city rejoiced, but the political reality had shifted. He would not be returning to Germania. Instead, Tiberius had a new mission for him. He was to be sent to the east, to govern the wealthy and politically complex province of Syria. It was a prestigious post, granting him immense authority over the eastern part of the empire. On the surface, it was a promotion, a sign of the emperor's trust. But the east was a web of intrigue, and waiting for him in Syria was a new governor, Gnaeus Calpurnius Piso. Piso was a man of the old aristocracy, proud, stubborn, and most importantly, fiercely loyal to Tiberius. Many historians believe he was placed there for a specific reason, to act as a check on the popular young prince, to watch him, to challenge him, and to ensure his ambitions never threatened the emperor. From the moment Germanicus arrived, the two men clashed. Their personalities were polar opposites. Germanicus was charismatic and sought to win over the local populations with diplomacy and respect for their customs. Piso was rigid and arrogant, enforcing Roman authority with an iron fist. Every decision Germanicus made, Piso seemed to obstruct. Every order he gave, Piso seemed to countermand. The political atmosphere grew toxic, filled with rivalry and open animosity. Germanicus was an ocean away from his loyal legions, entangled in a political struggle with a man who seemed to have the emperor's backing. Then, in the year 19 AD, after a journey to Egypt which further angered Tiberius, Germanicus fell ill. It was not a normal illness. It came on suddenly and with terrifying severity. He was racked with pain and fever. His health deteriorated rapidly. As he lay dying, at the young age of 33, Germanicus became convinced he was not a victim of disease, but of poison. He believed he was being murdered. In his final harrowing words to his friends and his wife, Agrippina, he did not hold back. He accused Gnaeus Piso of orchestrating his death, but he hinted at something far darker, a conspiracy that reached beyond a provincial governor, all the way to the highest circles of power in Rome. He made his friends swear an oath to avenge his death and protect his children. Then, the most beloved prince in the empire, the man who was meant to be its future, was gone. The news of his death struck the empire like a physical blow. When his ashes were brought back to Italy, the entire nation seemed to stop. Crowds lined the roads for miles, weeping openly. In Rome, business ceased. The forum fell silent. It was a display of mass grief, the likes of which had rarely been seen. The people had lost their hero, their hope for a better future. They mourned not just a man, but the promise he represented. The public outcry for justice was deafening. The name on everyone's lips was Piso. Accused of treason and the murder of the prince, Piso was put on trial. But the truth would remain buried. Before the trial could reach its conclusion, Gnaeus Piso was found dead in his home, under deeply suspicious circumstances. The official verdict was suicide, but few believed it. Had he been silenced to prevent him from revealing who else was involved? The question hung in the air, unanswered. With Piso dead, the investigation ended. Tiberius remained emperor, his position now secure, free from the shadow of his popular, charismatic heir. Justice for Germanicus never came. The great wave of public mourning eventually subsided, replaced by a quiet, lingering sorrow. Germanicus became a legend, a tragic what-if in Roman history. He remains a symbol of suppressed greatness, a bright light extinguished by the dark undercurrents of political fear and jealousy. His story is not one of conquest or power, but of loss. It's a quiet reflection on how even the greatest empires can, in their quest for stability, destroy the very best of themselves. He was the prince who saved Rome's honor, only to have his own life stolen, leaving behind not a legacy of rule, but an eternal echo of what could have been. Thanks for watching.